Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed executives, thank you for being here today. My name is Daniel Perez. I'm the project manager, and we're to speak to you about a very special project called Veterans Village. And my executive members of our team are...
My name is Trip Budisov.
I'm Michael Willis.
Ezewan Wampa.
And I'm Brian McGehee. And the purpose of our Veterans Village is to provide a safe, honorable, and respectable environment for repatriated and homeless veterans. Now, Veterans Village will provide food, clothing, shelter, and life structure for these veterans. Our village will support extended support for past the regular tap shower, which is great, it needs to be done, thank you. Coastal Cantonment, we want to tap into yours and take it one step further. So what we will do is our village will support and extend past that, in which we will provide basic care by providing productive reintegration into society through job training, and placement assistance. Veterans Village will also provide regular access to quality health and mental care, and daily socialization with opportunities within the village.
Thank you, Brian. Our pilot scope will include the purchasing of a piece of land of 10 acres that will be just north of Chicago, a few miles. It will be close to the Captain James A. Laval VA Center, so it will help facilitate the veterans whenever they have to attend medical briefings and medical appointments. The program is outlined for honorably discharged veterans only. We will develop standard operating procedures for the veterans. We will have a transportation plan in place at Veterans Village that will transport the veterans from the village to and from medical appointments, and also on job training and other job fairs. We will hire and train an operational staff that will be embedded with the veterans in Veterans Village that will know how to facilitate the veterans' wants and needs. And at the end of the pilot program, we will assess this to figure out if this was feasible and what the replicability is to spread this across the nation. Our project budget for the plan is just shy of $5 million. It's spread up into 5 development plans, and it has a contingency reserve fund of 10%. The largest chunk of that money will be in the infrastructure and the purchasing of the land up in North Chicago. Our facility and equipment will be used to purchase 11 container housing units that you saw on the very first slides that will be fabricated so that when the veterans have a place to sleep, shower, and also conduct classes and run daily operations. We will also feed the veterans there for the duration, and the contingency reserve that's built in also is identified the risks associated with this. Estimated cost for this project, for this program to run throughout the year will be $100,000.
Here's our schedule and how we plan to proceed. We plan to manage it as a program with 5 sub-projects. We estimate the total duration of the project to be approximately 120 days, and we estimate to finish on the first week of August. Here's our staffing plan. We have employees and contractors that will be overseen by the board of directors. We estimate the total duration, the total effort hours to be approximately, 14,000 hours.
Quality management. Listed here are 2 identified quality goals with shown areas for success and concentration. We want our veterans to thrive. Through screening, we will target veterans committed to completing their mental and physical health care plans. Further, our expectation is for veterans to be led through job preparation, workshops, and internships. In order to continually improve our pilot program, we intend to create a feedback loop assessing housing and financial advancement of our veterans. Finally, the sustainability of the CHU, or containerized housing unit, is important to our program, specifically as to how the structure can accommodate both those living and working on our site. Risk management. Our probability and impact matrix reveals that our Veteran Village pilot program is risk neutral. Because we can have positive and negative risks, we want to focus on opportunities and detailed threats. There are 3 listed threats here. We intend to mitigate these threats through lessons learned, corporate governance, stakeholder oversight, and targeted training. For the first threat, weather delay, we used our project schedule, which factored in windows of time to address this threat. The next threat, poorly built containers, will be addressed through contract assessment focused on verifying facilities and equipment. For the last listed threat, journey personnel. Our Vet Village director has confirmed that bonding, licensing, and insurance requirements are current and valid.
Next, we move into what's we call communications management. We have a variety of different levels here. The first level, extremely important, has to do with our politicians, senior level directors, and department heads. We will be holding a monthly status briefing for those individuals. Second, financiers. Extremely important for our capacity that we have here is quarterly budget meetings and scheduled updates. Third is going to be employment services. So we'll have weekly updates with those independent employment services, IDES, and some of the volunteer employment services, along with staffing companies. Also, final, health-based personnel. Very touchy subject. We have to stay HIPAA compliant with these varieties, and we will be doing a weekly update with our liaison with those entities. As a footnote, all of our meetings will be in person. We have some other final assumptions. Our assumptions are that job skill partners will be available when needed. And what that means is that when our veterans are ready to move into that step of job training and job placement, that they're right there in step with us. So it takes a little bit of coordination on our part. Second is that due to the reduction in the armed forces in conflict areas, we are already automatically assuming that these containers, also known as CHUs, container housing units, are going to be readily available for purchase at approximately a 60-70% cheaper than what the standard cost was when they were built. Also, additional assumption here is veteran-focused government agencies will continue to provide funding for the veterans, and that is what's currently in place, not only locally, but across the country at this time. Last, another assumption is that we'll be able to partner with the VA throughout our entire pilot program period. We feel that that one's going to be a good go. We still have to work it out. And the last, one more assumption that we do also have is that we're going to work and partnering up with Coastal Cantonment for taking, once they finish that step, we can move them into ours, house them, train them long-term for 6 months, and get them back to be a productive person in society.
If you build it, they will come, right? there is a need for Veterans Village, and it cannot be overstated. Let me point out one particular person here who would be very well served by this program. Corporal Marco Chavez, U.S. Marine Corps. Served honorably with great distinction in the Marine Corps, was honorably discharged, was what we would refer to as a green card veteran, meaning he was a permanent resident and not a U.S. citizen, but he still served his country. Unfortunately, when he got out into civilian life, he struggled. And as a result of his struggles, he was deported to Mexico. Going along with him originally was his young wife, who was disabled, also two of their 3 small children. They struggled in Mexico. Marco hadn't been there since he was 3 years old, and his children and his wife had never been there. So what happened was that she left with her 3 children and moved from Tijuana, Mexico to Iowa. A few years later, they divorced. He was never involved in their life. He had no money because, again, the standard of living is very different in Mexico than what it is in the United States. He was deported for 15 years until very recently, when his deportation order was terminated, and he was allowed to re-enter the United States shortly before Christmas for the first time in 15 years. The only thing he brought with him from Mexico was the red radio flyer wagon that he used to pull his small children in. His whole goal now, at least in the United States, is to not be necessarily a great father. His kids are grown, but it's to be a grandfather to those children, to his grandchildren. How can he be a good grandfather? By reacclimating into society again, through life sustainment that we're able to provide at Veterans Village, through job training, because he's been outside of the United States and has no United States skills. He doesn't even really know what it's like to be an American anymore after 15 years living in another country. He is just one of many veterans that are very, very needy and need this level of assistance. Homeless veterans, veterans that come out of prison and need some level of support to reintegrate in our society. It is our duty to make sure that these veterans are taken care of, build them up again, so that way they can be patriotic and also have pride in the United States once again, a country that they think has let them down because they've been forgotten. There's a need for Veterans Village, and these goals will be measured as successful by how many veterans were able to reintegrate in as productive members of society. At this time, we will open up to questions from the audience.
Am I right to assume that the numbers of people allowed to come into the program would vary as a function of the number of containers you had? Or is it limited in a certain way? And what is that number? How many people would?
At this point, as part of our pilot program, we're going to allow 11 veterans to move on to our facility because we have 11 housing units. As we continue the program over multiple years, we will then be able to go ahead and increase our housing and then increase the number of veterans. 11 is a good number for our pilot program to make sure we get it right the first time, so that way when we expand, we're able to get it right every time.
And one question, the selection procedure by which you can identify those people?
The selection procedure that we identify these people is according to a pre-established standard operating procedure that will have, for example, confirmed honorable discharge. We'll have questions for them in terms of how they, if they're homeless, what kind of support structure they have. It's really the limiting structure of support that they don't have that really makes them more eligible for our program as compared to them going to other programs that already readily exist throughout the city. We are looking really for the neediest and most forgotten veterans. Sir?
Do you have a time frame that you expect a veteran would stay in Veterans Village, or a maximum amount of time they'd be able to stay?
Currently, our program is 6 months in duration, which gives them a time to get used to being used to getting a certain level of structure in their lives again, having been military. And then from there, once they get some structure, they're able to move forward into education and job training programs through the partners that we have. So they're able to if, for example, if they have an apprentice position that they're doing job training with, they would be able to go through that, and as they build themselves up and start drawing a salary, we'd then be able to have them go to outside housing, outside of Veterans Village, in order for us to be able to move in another worthwhile candidate.
So is that 6 months an expectation or is that a limitation?
It's more of an expectation. So again, because every veteran's going to have different things. Some veterans might not adapt to structure anymore. There might be a reason why they got out of the military in the first place. It was too much structure. So they might enjoy their freedom and therefore not want the structure that we provide. What we're trying to do is we're trying to give them a path forward. We're trying to rebuild them back up. It's similar to basic training where you break down the Joe a little bit in order to raise them back up as a productive member. Thank you.
Just to caveat on the answer to that question also, sir, is that we do believe that 6 months is a good time frame. We do believe also that some of them in some of their job training programs will be a shorter stay. We really do anticipate them being out in the 5-6 month period, but there could be other cases, and if they are still in the job training program with whoever they're placed with, and they need to complete and need a little extra time, then we will work that out. But the goal is once they are gaining a paycheck, what are the life training skills that we're giving to them that they obviously don't have, didn't have, or have lost, is to get them to understand how to live on their own, how to budget their money, how to pay for their own living quarters, and how to have a bank account and run that money. So those are some of the parts of the in-house training that we are going to be putting them through. They have to relearn those life skills to be self-sufficient. Self-sufficiency is the goal.
Sir,
Final question, do you have any kind of support structure or other organizations that can support the veterans after they get out of the village so they don't fall back into their old, habits and then are returning to the Veterans Village?
The program we have that we built to include Veterans Village is the Veterans Village Alumni Program, which will allow not just these veterans to have somewhere to come where they'll be able to bond back with their veteran brothers and sisters that are in our program, but also to serve as role models to the people who are going through the program who might not otherwise think that they can go ahead and survive this level of structure and all the requirements that we're going to place on them in order to try to help them. So our Veterans Village Alumni Association is that program that's going to assist them in order to reduce recidivism.
And we talked about a feedback loop, and we'll track those veterans for a year's time, just to make sure that they're able to thrive. And if not, then ultimately, as you tried to ask, we'll reach out to the community in order to give them that support they ultimately need at a higher level of care.
I had a question about using the containers. Is this a pilot thing, and it's not going to continue, or my question is, would you rather? I was thinking, why wouldn't you just build more like regular structures that are not containers?
Great question. One, these containers actually physically exist. They were used by soldiers in other countries, Iraq, Afghanistan, things like that. So they physically exist. We can purchase them at an extremely low cost. So a double person unit, this is just one setup example for a 2-person unit. Some can be a Jack and Jill bathroom as this one, but living on each side, so they have a little more separated independence that they can learn. But these containers exist, and they're approximately, I believe,
$4,500, $3,500 initially right out the get-go from the jump, but we're getting them back at a certain price.
and they're already built.
And we have this photo here that shows what they look like in theater in Afghanistan, Iraq. These things actually look a whole lot better once they come back to the United States and we make some alterations. So they actually do turn out quite well. There are companies that right now do the same thing in terms of building them out in order to put on 10 acres of land for their hunting blinds and whatnot. So these things don't be fooled by the gravel and the container-looking structure. They actually do look a lot better.
Just a quick follow-up on that. As a veteran trying to, I guess, move into more of kind of like out of where they were and where they need to go, being in like an Army container, like, is that good or bad, or is that gonna like
It provides-
hold them back a little bit, like psychologically? Or
Sir, I think it provides familiarity to a situation that they may have lived in previously. Because again, most of our veterans that are struggling are those veterans who are returning from conflicts, whether they are Iraq, Afghanistan, or even still veterans to this day from Vietnam that have never truly come all the way home from Vietnam.
So it'd be like a known
Correct.
environment.
Yes, known environment, and then the structure that we provide them is very similar to what they had on a certain level. But then also too recognizing that these are veterans, these aren't still service members that have to do what they're told and so on and so
And the
forth.
camaraderie helps, acclimate them socio-emotionally. This is one of the reasons why many veterans continue to go to the VA hospital to be around other vets for their care when they can easily go to a private outlet for their care.
And this is what we more envision of what our container facilities will look like after we've done the remodeling.
I know it looks funny, but believe it or not, this has actually become quite a rage, not only in other countries, but also it's taking off in America. People are buying, and these are two 40-foot containers, which is the largest you see on being pulled by full-size semis, where they offset them and build them this way. Some of them buy 6, 7, cut them out in certain ways, and they have an entire luxury home of 3,000 square feet in stores. Put them together. I didn't bring all those pictures, but they're just incredible, some of the things that people have done. But this is happening all over the country right now. And because they can buy a vanilla container, which we call just a blank vanilla container, for $2,000 to $3,000. Pay $500 to have it shipped to your location and dropped.
Thoroughly insulated as well. too.
And then too, as part of our job training program, we're partnering up with the union trades in order to teach these veterans how to do plumbing, electrical work, so on and so forth. And we fully expect that our village will be built out later by these veterans building new homes for the veterans that are going to fall in where they once were. Ma'am?
Yeah, I'm sorry, who had the budget slide? I wanted to ask about your $100,000 operating cost. Can you just kind of let me understand a little bit what that really means?
Operating costs $100,000. Were we talking facility equipment? The annual?
Estimated annual
Okay.
operation cost is $100,000. Can you tell me what that is, what that consists of, and?
The annual cost is salaries to keep the employees, the on-site medical treatment facility people, the tradesmen that will be teaching the people how to do the trade, the union tradespeople, those salaries right there.
$100,000?
Keep the lights on, keep the water on, keep the utilities running throughout the year.
Yes.
So it's for everything for running utilities infrastructure, the village manager, maintenance personnel, and food service.
Essentially what we're
also
building,
feeding them.
we're building a small city is what we're doing. A very small city for a very, in our mind, elite clientele, which is veterans that really, really need us. So everything will be provided to them and until they're able to provide for themselves.
Keep the lights on. Okay, thank you.
Any more questions?
Please.
Yes, as a request from the point of order as the Navy conscience of the class. If you move to the level slide, request that Captain Lovell be promoted from Army Captain to Navy Captain.
Got it, Roger.
Yes, yes.
CAPT, not CPT. We'll blame our clerk typist for that.
I've got another typo.
Sir.
You spelled hippo wrong. It's HIIP.
Okay.
It's
Wow.
like hippo.
Wow.
You're fired.
I've done it many times.
You have to forgive him. He was an Army Lieutenant Colonel. We're working through that. So.
All that asbestos.
All right, fantastic, thank you.